What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So I'm here in the shop this afternoon and I've been messing with my Ford 5610 here that I purchased. Got some hydraulic troubles with it and I'm going to go over in this video some detailed issues that I had here. I have a diagram printed out, some stuff that I've run into. Had low hydraulic pressure remotes, and I think I found the problem. So I'm kind of going to go through and kind of walk you through this process of what I've discovered, because I hadn't really recorded this because I've been trying to solve this problem for about 3 days now. But anyway, I bought this tractor. Those of you following the channel and the project, I bought this tractor a little while back. It's kind of a project tractor to fix up. I just have as a secondary tractor. I have another tractor that's a lot better than this. But anyway, it was cheap. Figured it'd be a good project. And we got a bunch of stuff we're fixing on this. In the meantime, I'm waiting on parts to get ordered. I had already pulled this loader off. Well, I decided I would put the loader back on so that I could test the functions of the loader and everything and figure out what parts I needed to buy for the loader. I found out it's going to need some lift cylinders and stuff on it and whatnot. But I have a load cell that I use to test different stuff and weigh different things. You guys who watch the channel, subscribe, has seen that sort of stuff. We do that with that load cell. Anyway, so I hooked it up to my front end loader on here to test, see what the lift capacity was, make sure that it was within spec or whatever. And I was coming up with about half the lift capacity that it was supposed to be. And so that led me to do a hydraulic pressure check on my rear remotes, because that's where the loader is plumbed to, is on the rear remotes. And I'm only getting about 1200 PSI on the rear remotes back there. So well, that's odd. Maybe it's got a bad pump or something, but there's no way to really test the hydraulic pressure on the main pump without going through the remotes, because the way the plumbing is on, there's nowhere to tap into the pump down there. So I hooked my load cell up to my 3-point hitch and hooked it up out there to an anchor point. The 3-point hitch, it seems to be getting about what it should be getting. So that kind of told me that I didn't really see an issue with the pump. So I'm thinking maybe this valve here under the seat. That's what I have a printout of right here. And I've researched this on the internet and stuff, and I took this valve apart, and everybody says on the internet that's most likely where your problem was. So I took it apart, I cleaned it, didn't see anything wrong. There's a pressure relief right here. You take this plug out, and there's a valve right here. The camera picked this up. This got this little plug in, you got a spring, you got a little valve seat, a check ball, that goes into this valve here. That is your pressure relief. I think that is for your secondary pump. On some of these tractors had a secondary pump that mounted up here on the side of your engine. This one does not. So I don't know that pressure relief there really does. I mean, it does a little bit, but I don't think it's necessary, because the main pump and the transmission housing has a relief valve in it also. Anyway, I took this out, cleaned it up. I didn't see anything wrong with it. I actually tightened it down a little bit to this bottomed out so that I knew it wasn't bypassing pressure there. And I could still only I got it up to say 1600 PSI. And then it would get worse. Like if you engaged it a couple times, a few seconds at a time, or if you left it on for 15 seconds or whatever, the pressure would start dropping. It would get on down to like 1100 PSI. Well, I did that in my troubleshooting, because usually when you got a hydraulic system that's bypassing or whatnot, it'll build heat. And I got the feeling of that valve there up under the seat, and I noticed that it was starting to get warm across the back side of this valve, across this area right here on this valve. And this is like, well, there's got to be something going on with this valve. So I took this valve all apart and went through it. I didn't have the diagram at that time, but I went through and just pulled everything out, put it back the same way that it was. And I didn't see any issue with it whatsoever. And so I'm still scratching my head trying to figure out what in the world I need to do here. What do I need to order? Do I need to order a hydraulic pump, or is it the valve, or is there something wrong with both of them? I'm not exactly sure at this point. So anyway, I went to Messick's and tried to research this a little bit more, and I printed out this diagram, and this is very handy. I really like this about their website, or any website that has anything like this, that you can go by and print something out. Say if you need a part for something, there's no way you're going to be able to call a dealership on the phone and say, hey, I got this valve here and I need this middle spring out from under there. They won't have any idea what you might be talking about. But when you have a diagram like this, you can call them up, say, hey, I'm looking at this diagram right here, and I need part number so-and-so out of this diagram. And then they can look it up. It makes life a lot easier. So I really like the fact that Mesics has this on their website. So anyway, I go and I pull this diagram up, print it out and everything, and I go to looking at it. And there's two things in this valve right here that I did not see in my valve. Again, I pulled all this out. I've seen a YouTube video, guy had a problem with this shuttle valve right here, whatever that is. It caused the same issue. And I've seen a video and some more information on the forum that they have issues with dirt getting stuck in behind this check valve and stuff right here and causing the issue, and that causes your pressure to relief and you not get the full pressure you're supposed to get out of the remotes. So anyway, I looked at all that, I see nothing wrong with it, put it back together. So I'm still scratching my head, and I go pull up this diagram, and I go through, and I notice there's supposed to be a filter right here on this valve, which is not there on my valve. So it kind of leads me to believe that maybe somebody's been in this valve before, but that's just a filter. It shouldn't be an issue. The second thing I notice is on this valve right here, which is where I got the Allen wrench at over there with a ratchet sticking off in the tractor. There's an O-ring right here, that number 11 O-ring. There was no O-ring on this valve when I pulled it out. And so I was like, well, I don't remember seeing that O-ring on there. So I come back out here and I pull that valve out. Sure enough, there's no O-ring in there. I take a bore scope, look up in here with a bore scope. I don't see anything on there, any O-ring that's disintegrated or torn or anything inside there. There's no O-ring there. And so I go, okay. Where would this O-ring go? It's not too clear by looking at this diagram. It just shows the O-ring goes somewhere, I guess, within this valve or on this valve or to the end of this valve or something like that. And so I pull the valve out and I go over there and I look and try to look up in the bore with a bore scope and try to figure out where the O-ring may go. What I figured out was evidently there must be supposedly be that O-ring goes in between them two ring lands on that valve, because I put an O-ring I had out of an O-ring kit over there between them two ring lands right there, and I put that valve back in there, and now I have 2,500 psi of pressure on my remotes like it's supposed to be. So I may demonstrate that for you guys by pulling that back apart right there and show you with the O-ring and without the O-ring the differences. That way, if you may run across this, may help somebody out. So let me pull this apart real quick. Well, I'll crank it up and show you with the O-ring in there, and then I'll pull it back out, take the O-ring out of it like it was, put it back in there and show you what it was doing, and you guys can see the difference that O-ring makes. So I'm a little stumped on why that O-ring was not there if it's supposed to be. I mean, surely somebody did not remove it, but at the same time, if the O-ring deteriorated, it seems like there would be still pieces of it there. So I'm not 100% sure. So let me start this thing up. I'll show you the pressure it's reading right now with the O-ring in there, and then I'm going to pull it out and show you without it in there what I've been fighting for the last 3 days. All right, so this is our pressure gauge. I just got it plumbed into the remote here, and I'm fixing to engage the remote. Now I'm going to remove that O-ring from that valve and show you what it does. All right, guys, I'm going to remove this valve, the spool valve right here, and I'm going to show you the O-ring that I installed on there. And the problem, in other words, duplicate, I can't talk today. The issue, you have a spring, the plug, the spring, then there's a valve in here. See if I can get it out now that I installed O-ring on it. Yeah. There's where I put the O-ring at on that valve. As you can see right there, there was no O-ring there. So I'm going to remove this O-ring right here and install the valve just like it was when I got the tractor, and I'll show you what the remotes were doing back there. See, I first thought this O-ring may have went here, but it won't go all the way in the bore down there with it there. So I'm guessing that's not the issue. And this is just an O-ring that I got out of the O-ring kit over there. So I hate to lay that down anywhere. Well, it's clean up there. Got it clean. We'll put this back in just like it was when I got the tractor. And as I say, I could tell it seemed like something was in that valve, but I mean, just pulling it apart, you would not think that there was supposed to be an O-ring right there. You know, it looks just like just a normal spool valve. You would not pick up on that without that diagram that there's supposed to be anything there. And so, all right, got it back snug there. I'm gonna start the thing back up and show you the pressure gauge. Wipe my hands off first so I don't get oil all over my camera. This is with no O-ring. If you hold it engaged a little bit, it'll get worse. When it gets warm, it'll get down there like 11 or 1200. Alright guys, so I actually found the dimension for this O-ring right here. Number 19, that is your dimensions for this O-ring. The O-ring that I'm using here is about the right ID and OD, but it is not as thick as that. That's 3.43 mils thick, and I'm showing 2.3 mils thick, but my OD is right there pretty close to what that's showing, and so is my ID on this. It's really close. So this O-ring that I'm using here is not as thick as the one that is supposed to be, but as I say, it seems to be working as of right now. So that may be something that I need to look into, is seeing if I can order this O-ring. It did show a price on there. This O-ring was like $5 for the correct O-ring. And as you can see, it's a little bit narrow, so having one a little bit wider would probably be a little better. But this one seems to do the trick. And I may have to get my pick over there to put this on, unless I can roll it on there. Oh yeah, I got it rolled on there. See, it's just a little bit narrow. So I think the other one is a little bit thicker. It's going to be the same size, but just a little bit thicker right there. And when I looked up in here with the bore scope, you can see an angle on the back of this bore here. Has actually got a flange. It's not just a square bore like most valves is. It's a flange bore, so that the O-ring will slide in. You can feel it the last little bit right there on that O-ring right there. You can feel it, just a little bit of resistance there, and that O-ring pops in that flange. Spring cap. And I'm going to go ahead and pull this valve right here out and look at it again and back this pressure adjustment off. Even though it's using the relief, the full relief on that pump down there, you're still supposed to have this set right here. And as I say, I think that's mainly for the tractors that has a dual pump. The dual pump tractors has a line that comes in up here in the front, I believe, right there, and uses that pressure relief valve in there. We'll go ahead and pull it out. I'll show you it while we're at it right here. It's going to take me a couple times to take this out and reset this thing, because I don't have any idea where the setting was at. I'm going to have to back it back down till the pressure gets below, and then turn it up, you know, say a half a round at a time or whatever till I get it where it should be, probably, if I had to guess. But anyway, that's not a big issue. I've just got it all out of adjustment. Come on out of there, valve. There we go. Anyway, you see the set screw inside of there. We'll take an Allen and pull that out. As I say, there's a spring, check ball in here. And this here from the factory, I think, is Loctited in. So you'll have to heat that up if you want to make that adjustment or whatnot. But that was not our issue. I believe the O-ring was our issue. See, none of the rest of these valves have any kind of O-ring or anything on it. So that did not occur to me that there was supposed to be any O-ring. It makes me wonder why that there was no O-ring there. So I don't know. All right, so I backed that screw out. I had it all the way bottomed out because I was checking, as I say, trying to figure out if there was something bypassing here or what. I backed it out a turn and a half and put it back in there, check it. I might do this a couple times till I get it set where I want it and see what's going on with that. All right, so I got this thing set. I put it in there and took it back out a couple times, turned it about a half turn. Somewhere between 1.5 and 2 turns from being bottomed out, backed out. If you take this thing apart, probably best to count your turns from where it's at out and then go back to that spot. But I backed it out 2 turns and checked it. We had about 2200 psi, and so between 1.5 and 2 turns out is about where I'm at on that. I also found a ever so slightly thicker O-ring for this other valve here that I'm going to pull that right back out real quick and see. I don't think it's enough thicker to really matter very much, but I think being how it is just a touch thicker, that I will go ahead and install it on there, and it'll be a little bit closer to what's supposed to be in there anyways. So this one here is about 2.3 millimeter thickness. The other one I have is like 2.4 millimeter thickness. So I don't know that that's going to be very noticeable at all, very minimal. Got dirt on it, which you don't want in a hydraulic system. But anyway, I don't think that's going to be very noticeable. The one that's supposed to go here is 3.2, I believe it said. So it's still not close to that, but it's closer anyways. I think the OD and everything's about the same. I'm not convinced that's going to make a nickel's worth of difference. It's still not thick as it should be. Look, it's just a touch snugger going in there. All right, I'm gonna test this thing one more time here. All right, guys, so I figured I'd take a minute to show you around the other side of the tractor over here, the main hydraulic pump. This is the only hydraulic pump this tractor has. Right here where your filter screws on, this is considered your main. The one that's additional on some tractors mounts on the other side, as I showed. This here that my finger's on is the main relief valve. So that's where your main pressure line comes out right there. That is your main pressure line that goes up and comes in, goes through the pump housing. And this is a closed loop load sensing valve on the hydraulic remotes back there. And that's what this here controls. Your small line comes off of your hydraulic remotes back there, your SCVs. Comes up to this, sends signal pressure to this valve to shift and allow your flow and pressure to go to that line there. But this is just a fixed displacement pump. This is not a variable displacement piston pump like is on my dozer and that sort of stuff. So this is just a fixed pump, but I think the top of this thing is open center, and then this is a closed center load sensing valve here. I don't know why they did it that way. Well, I guess they did it that way because the secondary pump, I think, is the whole reason to design behind the design of this particular valve and setup here. Because if it was just a single pump tractor as this is, this valve here doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But it is required when you have the additional pump on here, because the additional pump has another line that comes in here, and generally on those tractors you have two sets of remotes. So this line here is a double line coming off the back, and so if you want to tie in like this loader here a different way, you would have to have a load sensing closed center valve for the loader and tee into this line with the check valve on your load sense and all that stuff. But anyway, we're just using the open center valve on the loader. That's the way it was done, and coming off the remote. That is the simplest way to do it. Not the best, but the simplest. And so that's the way we're going to run it. I'm going to fire this thing up. We're going to check this pressure one more time, and I think we're going to be good to go on this project. All right, guys, so everything seems to work. I took it out there and picked up some stuff with it. Everything as far as seems to work on the loader and everything. Like I said, we got a lot of work to do to this tractor. If you have any more information on the hydraulics that might help somebody out, feel free to leave that in the comments. If you just enjoy seeing stuff like this, consider subscribing. And we got a lot more work to do to this thing to get it back in operational condition to where you can actually do it, use it to do some serious work with. So anyway, we're gonna wrap this video up. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys in the next video.